Hi, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cracking installment of the Matt Brown Show. This is the Secrets of Scale series, where we're connecting you to founders who have actually scaled things and broken the mold in the process. With us on the line in the hot seat today is Krish, the CEO of Fireflies. Krish, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's all good, man. You guys are doing some cool shit. Like, I've seen your stuff popping into my Zoom windows. I'm like, why is there two people on this Zoom call? And then I see this Fireflies.ai or something like working in the background there. And now finally I know who it is. It's you. It's what you built. You guys have raised about $20 million so far and seem to be on this scale trajectory. So, dude, so lots to get into. So thanks for being here today, man. So for our viewers around the world, Krish, who haven't heard about you, or maybe who have heard about Fireflies, or maybe using your product, just give us, our viewers around the world, a bit about the origin story to Fireflies and kick us off.
Absolutely. So before Fireflies, I was a PM at Microsoft, and we spent tons of time in meetings. And after I left Microsoft, we were thinking about different startup projects and ideas to work on. And this thing always rung with me that I have way too many conversations. I don't remember what I said on a meeting when I do back-to-back meetings. And there's no way for me to just go back and quickly search through a conversation like I would search through an email I sent 6 years ago. So that was the origin stories of Fireflies. We did a lot of iterations along the way. But we discovered that, hey, if we can transcribe all these meetings at really high accuracy, have an AI assistant join those meetings and follow you around like a personal secretary, we have something that's going to be deeply intertwined with someone's day-to-day workflow. So long story short, Fireflies is an AI note taker. It joins your Zoom calls, WebEx, GoToMeeting, Google Meet, all the major video conferencing providers. We integrate with them. And it transcribes the meeting at really high accuracy. It's then able to summarize and transform those notes into bullet point notes or paragraph notes and help you really analyze and understand your conversations. And with the recent rise and interest in ChatGPT and generative AI, we've been plugging that into our platform as well. We're fortunate to have the same investors as OpenAI, so got early access last year to all the GPT-3 technology. And we recently released this new enhancement on top of Fireflies called Ask Fred. So our AI's name is Fred. And instead of having to just search through a meeting afterwards, you can just ask Fred any questions that were discussed on the meeting, and it'll pull up the answers and converse with you about what happened on the meeting.
It's such an interesting thing. It's in terms of the use case for it, it's like there's obviously different types of use cases, but it's fundamentally the same thing, which is note taking on virtual calls. And so it's this idea, isn't it, around like Jeffrey Moore has been on my show, and he's like, find a kind of a very small audience that you can serve. And in your case, what you've done really well is you found a very specific use case that scales ad nauseum across every type of business. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's been quite an interesting observation from my side. So that idea of a single use case that scales across multiple industries, all types of people, and that how important has that been in your ability to actually scale Fireflies?
There is technology like this at the enterprise level that is very deeply focused on specific use cases. Like this sort of technology could exist in a call center, right? When people are doing quality assurance. But my goal from day one was, how do we democratize AI so that every person can use it inside an organization? And for me, it was really important that when we built this thing, that it was actually horizontal in nature, that it can be used by salespeople, it can be used by recruiters, it can be used by product managers. So a lot of thought was put into the way we architected the product, the way we thought about go-to-market, the way we think about the features. So that was actually a really big play. And when we look at the enterprise, right, think about knowledge workers, people in the workplace that are having lots of meetings. One interesting coincidence was we launched in January 2020, and then a few months later, you have the pandemic, everyone going remote, Zoom taking center stage. So that accelerated the adoption. The timing part, we were fortunate. That's not something we planned for, right? With the pandemic, with the launch. However, we always thought about, well, these video conferencing tools are always going to be there, whether people are in the office or they're going to be remote. The need for these exists. In fact, we built Fireflies for a world where you would walk into a conference room and you would let the AI note taker into the meeting in your conference room setup. So we actually started building at a time when video conferencing was not necessarily the main central point, right, in terms of what we were building. But to your point, it was really pivotal that we went horizontal because Fireflies has taken notes for over 10 million people since then. And it's become this common factor in a lot of Zoom meetings. Like people, when I meet people outside now, they're like, oh, I've seen Fireflies before on a meeting. So you guys are the ones behind it. That's amazing to hear that, see that sort of virality in the customer segments that we're going after. So that's been really impactful because most of our growth to date has come just from word of mouth. We haven't done any fancy ad campaigns or crazy marketing things. In fact, we don't even have a marketing budget. So yeah, the horizontal, the focus on the note taker has been really instrumental for our go-to-market as well.
Mm-hmm. So the this idea of product-led growth, are you a subscriber to that when it comes to scale? I mean, if you don't have a marketing budget or, blah, 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 do you find that you're falling on the product-led growth? So we have one use case, horizontal scaling opportunities, focus very specifically on adding features around this one use case. Yes, there was COVID, drove a lot of adoption, which was fantastic, amazing. You hit the fucking jackpot, but now we're post-pandemic. You know what I mean? So, are you seeing product-led growth playing a role, if at all, in what you guys are able to do when it comes to scale?
We're the poster child for product-led growth because both my co-founder and I were engineering product-focused founders. A lot of companies are started by someone that's a technology focused and someone that's a sales focused founder. For us, we did not want to have to force someone to buy the product. And everything we designed from our website, transparent pricing, easy checkout, you should be able to use Fireflies without having to talk to someone. In fact, in the early days, I was a strong believer that if someone cannot purchase Fireflies on their own, try it out on their own, and figure it out, then that is a product bug. Having to talk to humans would have been actually adding more friction. So obviously now we have customer onboarding and some form of sales that can help the larger accounts. But for the most part, it was all focused on the self-service motion. And doing that meant we had to build an enterprise level product with the DNA of consumer functionality, right? When you are using Messenger or Gmail or Google Docs, you don't ask someone to teach you how to use it necessarily, right? And you just go sign up for the tools on your own. I'm also amazed at how much of enterprise level decision making today is made by an individual inside an organization starting to use a technology and saying to their manager, I really like this and I want us to adopt it. The power of the individual in an org is very impactful. And it's significant, and management takes note. This is the reason why Slack succeeded so well. In fact, our one of our early angel investors was the chief product officer at Slack. And she said, whatever you do, maintain this focus on this self-service motion, this easy adoption, and go to door inside an organization. That's what we felt, right? Like if we can bring value to one person and then they share it with a dozen of their teammates, that's success for us. That was our North Star metric. And yeah, product-led growth has been pivotal and still is after the pandemic. Many people have come and gone during the pandemic in terms of startups that were exclusively catered towards the pandemic era. In fact, for Fireflies, we're growing faster today than we did at the peak of the pandemic. And part of that is largely contributed to product-led motion, the virality motion, the word of mouth that has come as a result of that.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's really, really cool to hear that story. I mean, I think it doesn't work for everyone. And I think that's really an important point, right? Like for you guys, because of what you do, and for who you do it, and the context of the user in terms of their ability to self-serve, adopt. And, as I mentioned right up front, it's like you see this, what is this Fireflies thing in my, do you know what I mean? So it's a very clever way to continue to scale, but it doesn't work for everyone. Like if you're trying to do SaaS payment optimization and you go, we want to do product-led growth, it's like, no, dude, you don't qualify in that category.
True. Collaboration products, work products, productivity products are great with this sort of motion. But if you are selling some sort of payment processor or a enterprise grade technology that needs sign off from the head of the treasury or the CFO, very different motion. So some products naturally lend themselves into this collaborative PLG model. Others don't. To be honest, there are some more enterprise grade products that still have a free trial. So some people can argue that PLG is not just a freemium plan. It could also include a free trial. So I think we're going to a world where 60% of the decision making or discovery is already done before someone comes in. But if you are trying to sell a particular product to a particular department where your use case is very clear, what ends up happening is that's when you build out that sales motion, you educate, and sometimes those higher ups are harder to reach out to. We have sales as one of our primary use cases. Maybe a third of our customers use Fireflies for sales, but it usually starts with the rep or the manager using it themselves, and then it goes up to the VP of sales. Whereas there's a lot of sales tech products today where people are sending thousands and thousands of emails outbound, knocking on the door. It's very competitive. They're all fighting for the attention of the VP of sales, who is heavily sold to, right? So we didn't want to go down that race. That was not going to be our competitive advantage. Like, how hard do you do outbound sales? Our competitive advantage was how much value can we provide through the product up front? And it's much easier to sell to someone when you have social proof or someone else inside an organization advocating for you. So I believe in customer marketing and customers sharing value, but getting that initial traction is also still very difficult. I actually advise other startups not to do PLG if they're not ready for the grind, because it can take several years to just get off the ground. It doesn't happen overnight where, oh, you built an AI note taker, it joins your meeting. Sounds simple enough. I'm sure it's going to go viral. Like, that actually took a lot of time to seed, to plant, to get people familiarized with the technology. Before you become household or mainstream in any particular industry, it takes a lot of time and effort. In that time and effort, someone that did a sales-led motion probably could have closed tons of revenue, had fewer customers, and extracted more by charging more for that. We had to keep our prices where it's super, super like inexpensive. Like, you don't even have to think about it. It's $10 a month. Okay, no brainer. Whereas you can't support a sales-led model on a $10 per seat product, right? So your pricing changes, your go-to-market changes, your engineering and R&D investments change. A lot of that can be, I guess, sugar-coated a little bit if you have a really good salesperson that can cut through that noise. But for us, that wasn't going to be our main differentiator. So we invested a lot of time and energy in saying, okay, we know one thing, we're going to build a really strong product, and we're going to have the product make itself like shareable and viral.
The other thing that is quite interesting from an observation perspective is that where you guys come in, I don't need to change my behavior. I think that's a really an underestimated piece. So, and I see this in the venture capital space where when I speak to general partners of VC firms, and they'll say, like, none of our startups meet their revenue projections. Like, it's very, very rare, if at all. Like, we're going to become, $1 billion company by the such and such. Like, no, you're not. And the reason for that is a number of reasons, but one of the big ones is they underestimate how much humans or their target customers are not prepared to change. So it's like, yes, I love the idea. It's cool. I see value in it, but, hey, it's just too, I'm not actually going to do it. And from a PLG perspective, what I'm observing here is that I'm already on Zoom. The integration is frictionless. It's easy for me just to add value to my existing behavior. You're not asking me to install a different, like a mobile phone app, and then, like it's a very smooth let's just say, adoption process for what you guys are doing, because I don't have to change my behavior. I'm on a Zoom call, I integrate it, and then I get the email that gets sent afterwards.
Sign up for Fireflies is literally 2 steps. You go in, you log in with your Google or Outlook calendar, and pretty much you configure your settings, or you use the default settings, and Fireflies then automatically looks at your calendar, which meetings have a video conferencing link, and then joins the appropriate meetings. So in terms of friction, it's very much streamlined. You don't have to think at all once you've connected it. It's like 2 clicks, you're already in and you're ready to go. And this is actually what we discussed in the early days. Was I'm a big believer that it's hard to change people, no matter what you do, whether it comes to using software or even their personal habits. Changing existing habits is very hard, especially because people have certain tendencies. They can be addicted to doing something, even if it's the wrong thing. So that's just my personal view, that you are given the cards, or you're dealt the cards that you're given, and you have to work with them. So instead, what you have to do is fit into their workflow and ease into what they're already doing, and make sure that you show value, because no one is going to change their behavior unless something is going to give them 10x value, where the return is so significant where they realize, oh, wow, I need to change something about myself or how I do things. I still know people that will manually copy and paste things from one spreadsheet to another, right? Instead of learning how to run maybe a macro or script. There are people that like to be old school. Nothing wrong with that. We had to build a product, right? Because our central vision was we want to democratize AI. No one has time to learn about speech to text and all this like underlying deep learning, machine learning stuff. So we have to package the solution in a way that is super easy for the normal person to understand and easy enough for them to just start using it. So I need a product that like a person that is like 60 or 70 years old that just uses Zoom and figured out how to use Zoom can use Fireflies. And I need someone that is, just starting work, the 22, who's more tech savvy, to be able to use Fireflies. This is also the reason why we integrate with so many solutions. Fireflies today not only integrates with 8+ video conferencing providers, we also integrate with telephony systems like AirCall, RingCentral, common business phone systems that people use. And we also integrate with almost 8+ different CRMs like Salesforce, HubSpot. An ideal use case, since we're on the sales use case, if I have my Salesforce CRM turned on and I have a meeting with a client, Fireflies will know who I spoke with. So it will go into that record in Salesforce and fill out the notes and the call data automatically. So no touch. I don't have to get involved. My manager doesn't have to remind me to update my notes every day after I talk to my clients or prospects. It's done automatically, right? And that's deeply integrated into your workflow. We didn't go out, build another video conferencing solution. We didn't go build out another CRM solution. We said, let's work with the systems that you already use.
Amazing insights. And we're just going to take a quick break. And now you'll hear from one of our amazing sponsors. We'll see you in a minute. The Matt Brown Show is presented by Carafin, an investment bank that offers and supports direct private investments in U.S. operating companies. Over the past 20 years, investors have placed over $1.2 billion of private debt and equity in more than 100 companies through Carafin and its affiliates. Carafin leverages technology to empower its community of investors to deploy their capital far more efficiently than ever before, and connects their community of engaged investors with worthy companies. Invest portions of your portfolio in direct private investments today. Visit carafin.com/Matt Brown Show for more. And we're back. So Kush, not Kush. Kush is one of my guys. Krish, I wanted to just chat to you about scaling operations, because I think one of the things, obviously everyone knew about Zoom, right? During the pandemic, it was kind of like they adopted Zoom. Like that was the thing. And Zoom's valuations just went off the charts. Everybody made a lot of money in terms of like their investors and things. And so they had to scale operations. You're obviously part of that, rising tide, or you were part of that rising tide. So I'm curious to understand from a scaling operations perspective, Krish, like how have you had to adapt from an operational infrastructure perspective when you guys are scaling? I mean, if you're scaling now, more now than you were back then, like there must have been some kind of operational strategy that you had to adopt in order to ensure that you could scale to the level that you guys are at.
Absolutely. More than even the AI parts in the early days, it was about how do we build a system that can handle the volume, the load of calls. We have an agent, right, which is our AI assistant that is joining calls across tens of thousands of calls, millions of calls now. And it's done more meetings. So if you or I had to attend a meeting, the same number of meetings that Fireflies attended, in a single year, that's equivalent to 2,500 years of meetings. We just looked at that. So in 1 year, Fireflies attended 2,500 years worth of meetings. And to scale for that, we couldn't have done it just on day one. There was so much pain and battle scars that come through that process. And I like to say this, but once you are live, it's like having to fix a house that has a pipe leak, but you are not allowed to turn off the water or the plumbing. You have to keep the system running, and then you still have to go find where the issue is and fix it. That's what every day looked like in the first 6 months of the pandemic. And even like when there's a huge inflection curve in the volume of customers that come in, it is really, really difficult. So when folks talk about, hey, what if like someone else comes in and tries to just replicate exactly what you're trying to do, because you've kind of laid out the template for what a successful AI note taker is like. That's one of the, I wouldn't say first mover advantages, but early mover advantages that we've had. We've mapped out what it takes. I say good luck, because it is insanely difficult. And anything that has to do with voice, telephony, video, streaming, the infrastructure capabilities that are needed to support that in real time is extremely stressful, because we have a saying that I can be late to a meeting, but Fireflies can't. It has to always show up on time, every day, every hour, whether it's on a holiday or a weekday or a weekend, right? So our ops team is built around that 24/7 cadence. We have someone online on a 24/7 basis. In fact, many people across 10 countries, many different time zones, to manage this process. And then as you scale up too, it's very expensive. So you can't just write code and arbitrarily build out a system that's going to take up a lot of compute and servers. You have to be very smart in terms of how you build this. So I believe that when people look at products like Twitter and say, oh, this is so simple, anyone can build it, good luck building it at the scale that they have done it, right? So that's the thing, right? Over time, scale becomes a competitive advantage. You also learn a lot of things from a large user base, like what people care about. So you have a constant feedback system. Not only are you fixing issues, scaling the product, the infrastructure, but you also have to keep updating yourself. You have to keep staying relevant, and you have to keep making the product valuable. So the moment this generative AI, open AI, GPT-3, Chat GPT stuff came, we didn't want to sit on the sidelines. We had like that proactiveness to say, hey, this is going to change the way a lot of the technology that's being built today. And we were one of the first to adopt it as a result.
So what are you struggling with right now when it comes to scaling Fireflies?
For us, honestly, like the volume of demos that our team does, the number of people that come in, like there's just so much volume. You have to sometimes plan out your hiring 12 months in advance. You don't want to overhire. I'm a big believer in not overhiring. I also believe that you shouldn't hire unless you feel the pain. It's very contradictory to maybe traditional Silicon Valley, where they're hiring hundreds of salespeople before they even have customers. I feel like if you know the pain, if you can feel the pain of, wow, I'm being stretched, there is just too much for me to do, that's a good time to hire. And even then, you have to learn to hire fast. So hiring for us, hiring talent, raising the bar is something that I would say is a constant work in progress. We make mistakes along the way. We learn who's a good hire, who's not a good hire. But at the end of the day, if you want to tackle all these ambitious things with a really small team, we're only 100 people, you have to have a team that's really well-motivated, driven. And again, like I said, we're managing folks across many time zones as well. And we're also 100% remote. That adds to another layer of complexity. So we've done everything that's atypical of like your traditional Silicon Valley startup. So we were remote from day one. We hire across the globe. We sell to many different use cases, not just a single use case. So it's in a way running 10 products in one. And we picked a hard technology, voice, media, like real-time streaming. So it's almost as complex as, like, for example, if you see people using Twitch live streaming, like the same sort of infrastructure struggles and battles are going to be there for Fireflies. So it's a real-time system. So yeah, these are the areas that we kind of think about. And I would say if it was like the one biggest area of focus, it's around the quality of hiring. Every new person we bring in should raise the overall IQ of the team. So we keep raising the bar. And this forces us all to be really, really energized as well, because when someone new comes in with fresh energy, that motivates everyone else. So I would say hiring for any org at like our scale is going to be a challenge. And then infrastructure, ops, these sort of things are always going to be there. Like, there are times when you realize like, hey, like, can these other companies support the amount of compute and resources we need? How do we like find backup? Like, these are the sort of situations that tend to arise where you can't just now be a cookie cutter. Okay, we're just going to follow the model. We're going to just scale up our AWS servers. We have to think outside the box because that's how much our volume demands.
Yeah, on the culture side, I think a lot of, pretty much, I would say the large majority of founders that I speak to on the show, they're all doing, remote working, multiple countries, different time zones. And so this has come up a lot. But what have you learned about scaling culture? Because I think there's there's product-led growth, and that's great and everything, but you're really building a business of people. To your point, your next hire has got to raise the IQ, etc. So I know that this matters to you. So what have you learned about scaling culture in a distributed workforce in more than one region?
When it's remote, you do have to repeat yourself a lot in terms of what you're saying, what your mission is. A lot of times you're heavily dependent on products like Slack. We believe in documentation, writing things down, reiterating, re-emphasizing those things. I also am a big believer in not having silos, so a lot more transparency across the org. For example, there was a whole incident just a few days back with Silicon Valley Bank, and everyone starts panicking. Hey, how does this impact us? Does it impact us? And being able to just step up and be transparent and say, hey, this is what the situation is. It may not impact us, but it's going to impact our customers, and it's going to impact some people's ability to pay bills and invoices. So this is how we need to work around that. I feel like when you are more transparent with the team, whether it's good or bad, they rise up to the occasion. They take more responsibility. And if everyone is aligned towards a similar goal or mission, doesn't matter if you're in support, doesn't matter if you're an engineer, doesn't matter if you're a product person or a salesperson. If your ultimate goal is, how do we make Fireflies the number one AI note taker in the market? And we want Fireflies to be used by every person. When they think about AI note taking, Fireflies should be the product. That's how everyone operates around. And we think long term as well. If, for example, a customer comes in, we realize, hey, your requirements probably are way out of scope for what we can support today, but work with us. And this is where we plan to be. Like, having that communication, that vision is really important. So I think that it can't just come from leadership or top down from myself. You have to find people that are naturally motivated and want to go above and beyond. And then two, it's just re-emphasizing the values, the mission, the core goals, the strategy, and having transparency. Those are really the key pillars of calls. And I thought they went really well. I call the conversations where we had really great conversations with our customers, or if we had a product meeting or an engineering meeting where we decided on something, I can just tell that to a person that joined, hey, 6 months ago, these were the decisions that were made. It's all documented in this Fireflies recap. Go ahead and review it, read the summary, and you'll understand why we made the decision, right? Instead of that person operating around a lack of context, we're giving them as much context as possible. Knowledge is key. Conversations and context are king. And I really believe that beyond just the AI note-taking that we're doing at Fireflies, we're building an org's true knowledge base. And the best knowledge is directly to the source of the conversation, not your documents or wikis, because those documents end up getting stale. But your conversations are constantly updating. Like I've had a situation where we made one decision, we changed that decision, and then 6 months later, we reverted to another decision. And that was all documented in Firefly so we could understand the evolution of that decision-making process. So yeah, I just in general believe that documentation and writing things down, and you still have to repeat it, along with transparency are the core tenets of our culture.
Amazing. Krish, how have you evolved as a leader? Obviously there's starting a company, which anyone can do, but scaling one is a whole different thing. And we know this, there's some crazy stat, like 1 in 2 founders are replaced after 3 years if they take venture capital money. And it's largely because of skill sets and capability to lead an organization of a certain size in some cases. So when it comes to your own personal growth in the context of scale, what have you learned the most about yourself in terms of leadership and the ability to scale a company like Fireflies?
That's a great question because no one ever taught me leadership or management. I didn't attend a class or course in college. My education was definitely more around the technical side of things. I do believe curiosity is really important. And some people have it in them, right? Like that they want to lead, they want to take on responsibility. I really believe that that is an innate thing. There are things you can learn and grow through curiosity and wanting to understand different things. But at the end of the day, for me, my ability to be more personable, being there to listen and react based on the insights that are in front of me, rather than being fixated on a certain decision. So we have debates all the time inside the organization, but I like to hear a lot of different thoughts. I still read every single customer ticket that comes in, every feedback, every churn message, the good and the bad. And that helps me stay grounded. And I think sometimes the best leaders are the ones that are able to listen into their customers. Whoever is able to know their customers inside out are the ones that are going to ultimately win the market, win the customers. I'm a big believer in that. And when it comes to leadership, you have to lead from the front. If you're expecting someone to do it in 2 days, a task, you need to be able to show how you can do it in a day, right? So that is the sort of level and expectation and pace setting that you have to set. It's not just about delegating, which is nice to say, hey, I need to delegate, I need to have more leverage in the work that I do. But people start respecting you when you have gone through it and know what you're talking about. No hand waving, be precise in your conversations, in what you measure, what you talk about, and ask a lot of questions. I just feel like there's a lot of leadership literature out there that's very hand wavy, wishy-washy, where I've seen people where like my boss doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. I don't want to ever be that type of boss. So I know everything that's going on. It does definitely take more energy, more inputs, but I've just felt that being very, very close to the line of communication, whether it's with our employees or our customers, has helped me develop a better pattern matching decision-making mechanism. And that's helped me. And I also think that you can train and you can build yourself up to lead, because there's a lot of folks on the team that are much older than me, right? But age doesn't become a barrier into what we do. But I also know other friends that don't want to take this plunge because they don't want that responsibility on their head of having to manage people, having to make payroll. Imagine how crazy it was during the SVB incident when a lot of our fellow companies couldn't make payroll, right? There's a lot of stress that comes with it. But some people thrive and enjoy that responsibility. And I'm someone that where since I was a kid, that was like something I wanted to lead. I wanted to start group projects. I was like the head of the clubs. I ran like the tax committee at my university. So like everything was around like, if you want to create value, you have to take charge and initiative. And that's really been it. No formal lessons otherwise.
So it sucks being an overachiever, hey? Krish, how much scale is enough for you? Have you thought about that?
That is also a very good question. We thought about how do we support scale? Let's say as the system doubles or the volume doubles, triples, how do we manage that scale without overhiring? So I don't know what the limit is. I think the sky is the limit in terms of scale. Let's just say we want every person that's using a video conferencing provider to be able to leverage and lean on Fireflies to help them with their note taking, being productive. And really, we want to transform Fireflies from just this meeting assistant to this work assistant that helps you complete work across everything that you do, anything that originates from a conversation. So we have a bigger vision in terms of that. That could also mean we branch out beyond meetings to other communication platforms like Slack, like email. And there's a lot of opportunity there for us to potentially tap into. For now, there's a lot for us to do just in terms of meetings and support that volume of meetings. But less than what I think about the limit, I think more about how can we achieve that in the most efficient manner possible. I would be much more happy being able to get to billions of calls with a smaller 100-person team than getting there with a 1,000-person team. So I'm not a believer in hyperscaling or overhiring and making all these traditional mistakes that are great when the market is frothy and everyone is doing well. But you're seeing all the layoffs probably in the tech sector where companies 10x, their product didn't 10x, their customer base didn't 10x, but their employee count 10x, right? It doesn't make sense. So I believe that whichever scale that we want to reach, we want to do it with a small, lean, ninja-like team.
Yeah, I've got this thing called the team lunch rule. So if you can't have everyone around your house for lunch, it's too many people.
Wow. For the first 80 or so people, I was involved in every decision-making process. Maybe not 80, but like at least the first 60 people, I was involved in every decision process. We're now at a place where I just have to do the final interview or the final check. Or for engineering hires, sometimes I'll alternate with my co-founder, Sam. So it's just, it's very different when you know every single person that you've hired or almost every single person. It's just getting to that point where, oh, this is a new hire that someone else, some other department made. And getting used to that fact that, there's a new person in the Zoom call or the video conferencing call. So I have to let go of the ropes a little bit. So that's just a natural process of things.
Which, by the way, is also a leadership skill.
Yeah. You have to give away your building blocks, as they say it, and teach other people to do it. So there's nothing wrong with delegating. It's just that you want to be able to have someone build up the right muscles to do it. The best employees you can hire, and I say this time and time again, is when you give them your building blocks, you can turn away, look back after like a week and know things are taken care of. So the moment you start having to micromanage, that's when there's a loss of trust. And that's when you start regretting the hire, right? So a lot of people that you hire that are not able to execute or get things done, this is really where the friction point comes. And people know that within the first month, actually. They just like to drag it out for 6 months or a year and then make that call. Well, you knew the answer right there. It's something in your gut. But I also felt like some of our best hires were able to prove themselves with small responsibilities and then take bigger and bigger responsibilities, eventually become leaders inside the organization. We love to promote internally. So all of these factors goes back to a small team and help them grow their skill set and grow with the rate of the company in terms of their career.
Tell me, if I could give you the keys to the Matt Brown Show time machine and you could go back to yourself on day one, like no customers, no product, no nothing. You were just like, this is what I want to do with yourself and Sam. What advice would you give yourself about scaling a company on day one?
I would figure out how to build a product that is a painkiller and not a vitamin. And I would also channel out a lot of contradictory advice that we got from people. Like when we started, people would say, hey, you need to be in person. Hey, you need to focus on the sales use case because that's where the most money is. You need to go hire 4 salespeople right now and start selling. In fact, I would channel out all of that stuff and I would focus on the one true thing that really matters. Am I building something that people care enough to want to use, to change their behavior slightly to even install the product and use it? And is it valuable enough for them to want to pay for it? And bonus, can they pay for it without having to talk to me? If I can get those things right, that's another way of discovering product market fit. A lot of companies force their way to different milestones differently, right? Some people are sales led, some people are product led, some people are services led. But ultimately, it comes down to this, right? Product market fit. And then the next stage, once you've achieved product market fit, is your hair is going to be on fire all the time. How do you pick the battles that you want to fight and prioritize? Because you can't satisfy everyone. You can't solve every single bug. But there are some fires you need to let burning, and you have to prioritize, where you're constantly feeling stretched and pulled in 100 different directions. So those are the two phases of a company. Early days, you have all the time and energy, but you don't have customers, and you're doing everything you can. Later on, you're short on time, but you have lots of things that need to be addressed. So it's a very different dichotomy in terms of the challenges that are like, and you as a founder, you as an entrepreneur have to level up as well. You have to look at the micro, and you have to also zoom out and look at the bigger picture.
Really amazing advice. Really, really amazing advice. Krish, you guys are doing something really amazing. And I think there is value, obviously, in kind of what you're doing. And it's exciting to see where you guys are going to go in the future. I'm curious to ask you this, though. There's the business you are today, and there's the business you are becoming. And you kind of touched on it in the a bit earlier on. We were talking about knowledge. What kind of company? What does Fireflies look like as a mature stage company at scale?
That would have to be that we are an assistant that anyone can lean on to complete work inside an organization, whether it's writing emails after a meeting or going back through conversations you've had and being able to assist you. If you are able to lean on an assistant to help be the autocomplete for work, that's what we would want. We want to not just capture knowledge, make sense of knowledge, but utilize that knowledge for you to help you actually complete actions and work. So the first piece of Fireflies was helping you capture all of that knowledge that was previously not capturable. The next part is the making sense of that knowledge, quickly being able to search through it, ask questions, analyze it, analytics, all of that, summaries, make sense of that knowledge. And the third piece of Fireflies is, okay, we're able to capture the knowledge, we're able to make sense of that knowledge. How can we do work for you based on that knowledge? So those are what I would call the three parts or three pillars of Fireflies in the future. And if everyone can have an assistant that's just not there, like Fireflies is a fly on the wall that sits and takes notes for you, to being a very proactive assistant, I think we're getting super sci-fi and super futuristic. But hey, like we'd like to be that one assistant that every person goes to in the workplace to get work done.
Well, this is it, isn't it? I mean, we were also doing lip service towards or fantasy sci-fi stuff before ChatGPT arrived, and then it arrived, and I was like, oh, it's actually not pipe dream. It's actually here and real, and we can use it, and it doesn't suck. So, it is a very interesting time that we're in, and I'm sure you guys will most definitely take advantage of it. So, Krish, thanks for being on the show, buddy. It's been great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Matt. It was a pleasure chatting with you as well.
Anytime. Thanks, everyone.